Right. I greet you all from Oxfordshire, from the Vale of the White Horse. And we have got a very special guest today. She is at the moment all the way in Thailand, and it looks like it's nice and warm there. And I'm here freezing my ass in Oxfordshire right now. And I want to apologize in advance if I stop or if I say something that doesn't make sense, is because I'm not a morning person and we are recording this in my time zone. It's in the morning, where the Veronica, my guest, is in Thailand, which is 7 hours ahead. So I'm counting on her. That she will be the one that will make the sense, and I will just kind of assist a little bit. So my guest, whom I have been so looking forward to talking to, is Verca Partikova. And she is a Renaissance woman because she is an educator, she is an instructor, she's a martial artist, she's an athlete, she's an MMA fighter, and an academic. So there are lots and lots of roles. And I will just jump right in. Veronica, your website gives your name and the name of Kung Fu Academic. So you're Veronica Partikova, Kung Fu Academic. Where did it come from? We will jump right in.
Well, thanks so much for having me at first and for such like very nice introduction. Uh, Kung Fu academic. So it all started when I did my PhD in Hong Kong, and I researched martial arts from a sports psychology point of view. So I wanted to have like a website or some kind of space where I could like publish my results and papers. So that's why. So I was like academic. Yeah, I'm an academic. So Kung Fu academic. Yeah, and also I wanted to somehow like express that like the kind of like smart coaching or like my approach to coaching and to learning from like scientific or like smart like way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I read your I think it was your latest article on your blog about the way of learning through fighting, and it just really resonated with me because I'm myself a martial artist. That's my lifelong love. I am not as proficient as you are because nowhere near, but I totally love it. And what it gives to me is that it teaches me a lot about myself and others as well. So when I am practicing, when I'm training, I am meeting myself, I'm meeting all my fears, all my weaknesses, as well as my strengths, and there is no running away from it. And then what I distill out of it, I take out into the world and apply to situations out there in the mundane world. So when I was reading your article, it seemed to me that's your approach too, that you're learning a lot through that. So is that
Yeah, yeah, and
to the academia?
yeah, that's true, that's true. I had some people emailing me. They were like, "Oh, I want to join your academy." I was like, "There's no academy. There's just an academy. That's me, like the person. It's just me, a team of one."
Maybe you will have to start an academy. There you go. It's like, well, I didn't plan it. It just happened because everyone wanted it. So there you go. But you teach. You teach. I know you teach.
Yeah, I teach. I mean, I taught for several years, and since I moved to Thailand, which was last year, I had to stop coaching because now I'm full-time training as an MMA fighter, and also I have my job as a part-time event manager. So I don't really have time and energy to coach as well, but I miss it a lot. So I hope I can get back to it soon.
So it's on the plan. It's on the list. It
Yeah,
will happen
yeah.
again. It's
It
just
was
temporary.
always on the list. It will be always on
Always
the
on
list.
the list. Well, you have PhD in physical education, right?
Hmm.
So it's the sports psychology. Obviously, is there the teaching. Well, let's backpedal a little bit into your history. How did you meet with martial arts? How did it all start?
I'm not sure. I think I was around 3 years old when I told my parents I want to train martial arts. I think I probably saw something on TV, and so they put me into ballet because I'm a girl and girls don't do martial arts. So they kicked me out of ballet in like year or two
Was it for
because I was
fighting?
just because I was just no, I was always a very peaceful person. I'm actually not violent person at all. I was just standing in the gym and looking on the other side of the hall where there was maybe like taekwondo or karate or something with colorful belts. That's what I remember training. I was like, I want to be there. And so from there, I had to go to gymnastics because that's also what girls do. And then around when I was 11, then I could finally start, and I started with karate.
Fantastic. So you started in karate. I know you have a black belt, right? First dan?
Mm,
See,
yeah, yeah.
I did my research.
You did your research.
Yes, because I think if I remember correctly, I actually came across your name some time ago in an article. It was some kind of martial art magazine, and it was an article about you. And I remember the Kung Fu Academy there. I just don't remember which magazine it was or what are exactly what article. I just know that you really like really jumped out at me what you do and your approach and so you started with karate. Finally you left ballet and gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yeah, though gymnastics is a good base, you know, good preparation, I guess.
It was the modern one, so I just remember some bows and balls and things like that. But yeah, and I was very small, like maybe 6 years old.
So
I
what
didn't I didn't spend much time there either.
you spend more time daydreaming about the karate class,
Yeah.
right? So, what age were you when when you finally were allowed to do your karate?
11, 11.
11. 11. All right. So, how did you feel the first time in there?
Oh, I love it. I take notes after classes until now, and so after the first class, then I took my notes. I wrote down how to count in Japanese and put so many like stickers with glitters there, right? And yeah, it was amazing.
So, you knew that was your thing. It just resonated
Hmm, hmm.
that
Yeah,
you
there
knew
were
that was.
like times there were times during my life when I wasn't sure how much I want to commit to it, or I wasn't sure which direction to go. Like I felt like I am stuck. But it was always like something that like made my decisions about like where I live or what kind of people I have around and what I do for jobs and so on.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, but that's normal. It's part of life, isn't it? I mean, like
Mm,
I wanted to give up martial arts. I even gave up martial arts for a while, short while, of course, but it just doesn't, if it's your thing, it will always kind of reel you back on the hook. It's like you
hmm,
can't
hmm.
stay away from it too long,
Yeah.
but sometimes you need to step back and think about it as well.
Yeah, yeah. One of the interviewees in my research, he said that martial arts is like a lighthouse for him, so it always like shows the right direction where to go when he feels lost. So I think that's really nice way how to put it.
It is, yeah. It works. Yeah, it works pretty well. I will remember that. I might even steal it. So how did okay? So you went into the karate at 11. So what followed? Because I know that at some point you left Czech Republic, where you're from,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
you moved to Hong Kong. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so when I was around, I think 18, I switched to Kung Fu. I was doing karate, training karate and Kung Fu at the same time for like a year or two. Then I dropped karate and I only like trained Kung Fu, Hungar Kung Fu. And then 1 year we went to Hong Kong to attend a competition. And then when I saw the level of the knowledge there, and then I returned back home, I was really frustrated and I felt like sad and that it doesn't have any sense to do what I do because the difference was like huge. So I was thinking either I just quit or I move to Hong Kong.
Mhm.
So I moved to Hong Kong.
Just like that, you just picked
Yeah.
up your bags and moved to Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so at first I got to go there as an exchange student during my master's degree, and then when I came back, it took me. So I finished my master's degree, and I was looking for ways how to come back to Hong Kong, and then the only way for me how to go back was to teach English. So
Mhm.
I returned in around a year or less than a year, and I stayed there for another 8 years. Then
Mhm. And you did your PhD there, obviously.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So how was it? How was it? Because you know, like going from Czech Republic and all of a sudden living in Hong Kong, and it was already part of China, wasn't it? So how was it? Because it's always a little bit of cultural shock because it's two
Uh,
very different cultures.
it was 8 years long, a culture shock. Like it was quite often, it was quite terrible. There were like great things. I was like really happy I could be there, and I could like train with my Sifu, and I was like with the people around me. I got to see things I would not see, and also the way how they treat you is different if you're there just for 2 weeks to visit. If you commit to move there, then your status change a lot, and they talk to you less polite but more openly.
Mhm.
So it was really great. But on the other hand, I used to live in part of Hong Kong when there were no other foreigners because I wanted to be where I could learn Cantonese and where I could be near
Wow.
to my Sifu. And
Mhm.
so there were like days I didn't speak to anyone because I would go to his school and people would just talk Cantonese to each other, even though they could speak English, but they would not talk to me. So yeah, I had kind of like a non life for a few years,
So it was tough
and
immersion.
so it was quite hard, yeah.
So in some
And the
ways it,
living
huh? Oh,
the
sorry.
living conditions in Hong Kong are also quite tough. So it was like very small space and kind of like I felt like I really touched my bottom when I was in Hong Kong.
So you really learned where what how your bottom looks like, like the rock bottom looks like. How did you deal with it? What did it give you? What did it take, and how did you deal with it?
um, so I train every day, so that was that kind of like trail I could always get back where I felt home. So even though I couldn't understand the people in the gym or in the like social events, they would still like treat me as a family, even though no one would talk to me, but I was still like part of it. So that was nice. And then I got a therapist that I could like talk to about like the culture shock, who was in Czech. So that was good because he could understand why I'm frustrated about things that are happening to me, but other people around me could not understand why I'm angry.
Unless you
Um,
have been through that experience, that particular experience, it's difficult for people to understand or to explain it
yeah,
to him, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and then I moved to like I moved a lot. So the last spot where I lived was a small island in Hong Kong called Lama Island, which is more like there are lots of expat people living there. So I finally could understand people around me, and I could find some friends and like my bubble. So then it started to be easier.
So the
Yeah,
end of the nun life, right?
yeah, yes.
You
But
exited the
that
nunnery.
yeah, yeah. But that was maybe the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
So it was a little bit of hell to start with, to go through.
yeah. Mm.
Mm. It's almost like from some of the old films, the young student goes through a really harsh and tough life by herself, has to find her own way, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
she emerges changed.
Yeah, yeah. It's always like you in the movie, there is something that happens, something like good, right? You meet someone and then suddenly everything changes. So you're still waiting when it happens and it's not happening. So you're stuck in the like in the bad times for like a
Mhm.
long time. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when I first like moved to Hong Kong, I couldn't find a flat at first, so I stayed with my friend's grandma, and she couldn't speak English, so only speak Cantonese to me. She was very sweet. She like cooked rice and chicken for me for breakfast. I thought, oh, this is what like people eat here, but no, there was like lunch. But she just wanted me to have like energy for my work, so she basically cooked lunch for my breakfast. And it's not like that people would have like spare rooms in their houses. It's like every
No.
space is like taken. So my bed would be still partially like a wardrobe. So she would just like move things so I could have half of the bed. And then there was no shower because it was an old flat. So she would have to like boil the water with a kettle and then just like soak towel in it. That's how you took shower. So I was like, oh my God. But I was like, I cannot I cannot go back. If I go back, like, what would people think? I cannot give up now.
Yeah, you know what? As you're describing it, it just brings back good old times for me as well, because that was similar in the temple in Wudang Mountains, where I live. Like no proper shower, you just like showered when it rained, you know, or just toweled down, and you were just dusty but clean because you were training all the time. Yeah, it's brilliant. So how was the training? How was the training? Because people often in Europe or in the West do not realize the difference between the traditional training in China or in Southeast Asia and Europe. Because in Europe it's just totally different beast.
Yeah, yeah. So for the Kung Fu training, it was like largely forms oriented, like the forms, like the sequences of movements, and very little like drilling or even sparring. So when I asked my sifu about it, he was like, "Well, when I was young, we used to like spar and drill a lot, but now no one wants to do it, so we just train forms." So like the target group of this, and then the target group of maybe, I don't know, kickboxing classes is very different. So usually, like the class was not like timely framed. You would just come whenever you have time, within like 3 4 hours, or even stay the entire time. And then there was no like official start where you will like bow or like greet. No, no, you just come, say hi, 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 and then maybe put some incense sticks there and bow, and then you would just train. And usually one person would like train in the middle, and everyone else would watch, and then see who would correct, and it goes like that. So yeah, very very different.
And no long explanations. No, like not what we are used to in the West. Going, oh, can you explain to me how this works? Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
watch and learn, and I give you some corrections if I see that you are working really hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like for people who visit it, because sometimes there were like people coming to the gym to visit. So when they visit, then there will be the Sifu, and like the older like people, they will be like, oh, very good, very good. They will like clap, and yeah. But for those people who actually live there, they would never clap. They would
No.
be like, oh, that was terrible.
Yes. No sweet talking there, no encouragement.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
work
Only
harder.
eating bitter. Yeah, yeah, only
Eating
bitter.
bitter, yes.
Yeah,
I
eating
mean,
bitter.
the
And then
the oldies would be like Jayo, Jayo, and the other ones eat bitter.
yeah, yeah. And then in the evening, when everyone else left the gym, and usually me or maybe a few more people stay, then the Sifu would like do the applications and drills with me. And once he like learned that he can actually hit me, then it would go easier, and we could actually do that. So like when I started training MMA, at first he was kind of scared. He was scared when we spoke to me, but when we were at some kind of like kung fu party, he was like, "She does MMA," and everyone was like, "Oh, awesome, awesome! You're fighting, good, good." He will even show off my bruises. So
It's like the proud father showing
yeah,
off
yeah,
his daughter.
yeah,
She's tough.
it is true. Like once I was 1 week in Thailand training, and when I come back, I had like big problems with my ribs, because I trained with someone, and I got like really bruised ribs. I wasn't sure if they're broken or not. So I needed some kind of like medicine and like daily treatment. I couldn't afford it, so like my seafood just paid for that. So he really like he was really like, or is really like my father there as well.
Well, it does happen. That's the traditional thing as well. Once you are invited and accepted into the lineage and into the family, you are the family, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because I saw that you went through the ceremony and you have been accepted. You're part of
Yeah,
your
yeah.
Sifu's family. Yeah. Yeah, I always say about my Sifu, he's my is when I'm introducing or talking about his like he's my second father and now my only living father. So yeah, they do become that way. So what did you find the most surprising when you first started to train in Hong Kong?
Um, Maybe the lack of the contact exercises.
Hmm, hmm.
I would say two things. On one hand would be the lack of the like drilling and sparring that we do in Europe a lot. But on the other hand, the degree of knowledge was like so high, so huge, like the biomechanics and the angles and things like I never learned back at home. And there will be things like, how does this work? Why does it work like this? How to see if it's right or wrong. In back at home, it was more of guessing or like how it looks good. But here it was like really like the play of angles and it sometimes we really get to like geometry, like drawing things and how they get they connect together and so on. So that was like fascinating.
I find that magic. All of a sudden, it's like the curtain is drawn, and you're like, you see the whole different world. Like there is more depth. This is the magic.
Yeah.
That's
So
brilliant.
I could like see I could see like the lack of the contact things, but then basically what you learn, and then if you go to, I don't know, a boxing gym or a wrestling class, then you start to see like connections and similarities. You just see that the bridge between the application and the theory is like burned, but the technique is actually there. It's like very similar or even the same, or the concepts are the same.
And that's a perfect bridge from you as well, because I was going to ask, so you moved into MMA and we will get to it as well, but so when we are talking about applications and the similarities underneath of the different styles of martial arts, how was it for you transitioning, unless you have already done it before, transitioning between I call it a standing, the vertical, more vertical style of martial arts to grappling, to groundwork.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I couldn't
Your
understand really
face
what
says it
happening.
all. I'm like, yeah.
I even like now when I think about striking or like stand-up fighting, I can see like lines and angles and colors in front of me, like if I can draw in the air. But when it's like in the on the like flat on the ground, I sometimes when I see like my coach showing a technique, I really have hard time to see whose like leg is whose and like to like differentiate those two people. And yeah, so it
It's
was
like
hard.
it's just one big pile of bodies,
Yeah,
and
I
I
think
don't
I don't
know.
know what I'm looking at.
So, what style of groundwork are you doing? Are you doing BJJ, Brazilian
Yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu?
yeah.
Yeah, this is the
BJJ.
standard, isn't it, with
Hmm.
MMA? So it's still kind of new territory, yeah.
Uh, I like BJJ a lot now and wrestling too, even though I'm still more a striker. But yeah, I'm like not afraid to go to the ground anymore.
Well, we see it in UFC that you can see it in certain high-ranked fighters that they are more comfortable in either standing because that's their original background, or um, in groundwork. We know certain lady fighter, certain woman fighter that came from judo background, and that was her, that was her forte, so that she was always more comfortable in that, and she scored on restrain on the ground. So everyone has got their more kind
Yeah.
of comfort that is really like their thing, but the other one
Hmm.
is more of a challenge. So you're learning from a different
Hmm.
angles. So how did the MMA come about? When and how?
Um, when
You don't even remember anymore.
maybe 6 years ago,
Okay.
I was looking for a place where I could spar in Hong Kong because I didn't want to be one of those coaches who are never hit or who never fight, doesn't have the experiences of actually fighting and then but teaching about it. So I was like, I'm not gonna be one of those people. So I went to a Sanda gym, I went to boxing gym, and it didn't like click with me very well. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe MMA. And the reasoning I was thinking was they use this like gloves without fingers, right? So I can use my kung fu technique. So I didn't do much research. So when I first came to my first class of BJJ, I was like really surprised. I was like, oh, this is what it is. Okay. So and then it was for maybe a month or so or 2 months, and I wasn't very hooked. I wasn't like really like if this is something I want to do or not. But then Facebook started sending me this like targeted. advertisement about like training camps in Thailand, like training holiday in Tiger Muay Thai. And I was thinking, oh, I should try that. So I went there for 1 week, and then everyone else is there usually staying for months, right? They're like, oh, I'm here for 3 months. Like, how about yours? Oh, for 5 days. So I got there for the first time, and then I came another maybe 4 or 5 times. Like usually every half a year, I try to escape from Hong Kong for like 5 to 7 days, which wasn't much, but it always like gave me the motivation. So the first time I arrived and I saw the class of George and Frank Hickman's, I was like, wow, this is like very different from the MMA I knew from like home. Like the vibe is very different. It's like it is still aggressive and it is still like explosive, but it's like very smart and it's like the vibe was totally different. It clicked with me very well. So I was like, maybe I could train this too. And then when I came back the next half a year, I was like in a different stage. I was like, maybe I could compete as well. And then next time I came, I was thinking, oh, maybe I could like become a fighter, or maybe I could be a professional fighter. So basically, every like stage I was at, I always like came back to Tiger and like I've been with the coaches, and so they basically saw me like from level 0, and now they are my coaches here in Thailand, Bangta, Muay Thai, and MMA gym.
So it sneaked up on you, right? It just reeled you in again, like, thank you, Facebook. Targeted Facebook ads work, obviously. So how is it to living in Thailand?
It's I I finally like let myself or allow myself to see how difficult it was for me to Hong Kong, and then suddenly I'm here and it's like so much freedom. I don't have to wear face mask. I don't have to test every day. I can leave the country whenever I want. So last few years in Hong Kong were very tough, and here like it's like looking at everything through a filter because everything is so green. Then you realize it's because it rains like most of the year. But when it doesn't rain, it's everything is so like sunny and green, and people are very polite and very like positive, and everyone is positive. And then when you get to live in such a community like MMA gym, then you hang out with people who are very like high level, or then like the standard of things are different. Like now the standard here is like you try to like improve yourself every day. You take care of your body, you take care of your mind, you're like inspirational. So it's like very healthy environment. It's like yeah, amazing like people that you get to then hang out with.
Very nurturing. I guess it
Yeah,
like really makes you advance fast in all levels and all aspects,
yeah,
right?
that too. Yeah, but it's also like I don't know any other environment or like a social context where you would get so much like positive feedback without asking for it. Then someone comes to you suddenly without even like you ask for that, and they will be like, oh, I really like your, I don't know, your jab. Your jab is so much better now. It's been improving. It's amazing. You great job, great job. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. And it's normal. And then you go and you say something like that to other people, and it brings them up. It also brings you up. So it's really
Well,
great environment.
that does sound really good. I was like a paradise for fighters and martial artists people. Thailand is your life. So now that's a real big difference between what you have gone through through the bitterness and eating bitter, like really
Yeah,
almost in Hong Kong and here. Oops.
yeah.
I am destroying everything around. So how was that? Because you touched on how tough it was during the past few years with COVID, right, in Hong Kong. How did you deal with that? Because it must have been really tough mentally as well,
Yeah.
psychologically.
Well, I got a dog, so I
Taco,
I got
right?
my
Taco.
I got my corgi Taco. He's a COVID puppy,
It's so cute.
and we have most of the time the gyms had to be closed in Hong Kong, so I was just training outside. So yeah, without training, it would be very difficult.
And you couldn't teach, I guess, during because the
Yeah,
restrictions in Hong Kong and general
yeah,
China are tough. Still
hmm
are, I
hmm
guess.
yeah, yeah. It was difficult to even like leave the country or come back to the country. So I was stuck several times. Like some Christmas, I couldn't go home, and there was like lots of stress because you had to go through a quarantine in the hotel room, and the hotels that provided it were only few, and it was very expensive, and there was not enough rooms, so there was like a black market with the rooms, and the price was incredible, and so yeah, it was like a zombie apocalypse like coming through in Hong Kong.
It looked like it from pictures, and I wasn't even there, so I'm just like thinking how tough and difficult, real pressure it must have been actually being in the middle of it. So
Hmm.
I do understand that you wanted to escape the hell and find something where you can breathe a bit freely and can do more. Um, how is it with fighting? Because again, I was reading through your blog and you were talking about the watching your mind screaming at you about fear and things like that, or wanting to be out of it. So how is the mind game? How did you find that? How is it? How how did you find it to start with?
Oh, that's a very complex topic, but I
I
feel
know.
like
So,
the the
easy question,
mind is,
right?
yeah. Next.
Next.
I
Fear.
feel like
Mind game.
the mind is really giving you the, it's really like deciding the fight. Sometimes it's even more than the technique. Like if a fighter is scared, even though he or she is better than the opponent, then sometimes it can really go wrong. So so yeah, I think it's really important to like train the mind a lot and like pay attention to the mind and really like work with it.
Because otherwise it screams at you and it disturbs your focus, your concentration, and it makes you hesitate, and it makes
Mm,
you kind of not being committed and what you're doing. Because the thing is, it fascinates me in martial arts and fighting, the fear thing, the mind game, because you're fighting basically against your own instinct, you know. Your lizard brain is
mhm.
screaming at you, run, run, they're gonna kill you. And you're like, and the rest of you, and then thinking about what part of me is the rest of me that is saying, hell no, I'm staying here. You know, and how do I make sure that that aspect is stronger than the one that is screaming at me, I want to get out of here fast. You know, so it's what they speak in the fighting kind of martial arts community when they say the spirit, you know, the fighting spirit, isn't it?
Mm,
So how do
mhm.
you find your fighting spirit?
I do lots of exercises before my fight. I even go to a cafe, I sit down and I talk to myself, like in my mind, not aloud. I talk to myself, I ask myself questions, and then I like reply them. I have like a dialogue with me before the fight. I write down some questions and then I answer them like regarding what I want to achieve and why and what is the reasoning, what is my goal, what is my motivation, and then I write like my goals. So I have specific things to actually go to the fight. It's not only like if I want to win or lose, but things I want to achieve, such I don't know, like a low kick or uh, keep my positive mind in the breaks between rounds or things like that. And I have some like keywords in my mind that I can repeat, or I have a mood board, or all sort of things.
So you do real like in-depth preparation and mind work with yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Here comes the kind for academic again. Here comes the
I
academy.
guess.
The PhD in sports psychology. Yeah. So what made you choose sports psychology? PhD in sports psychology? Because I know you have
um,
got BA as well in sports
mhm.
psychology, right? And then you
No,
went on to.
I have BA and masters in social education.
Oh,
It's
right. Okay. Sorry.
it's a
Uh-huh.
special. It's okay. It's a special major that we have in the Czech Republic, and it's like it's not a teaching degree. It's like education degree outside of the classroom. So it covers like team buildings, uh, teaching adults, working with addicted or some maybe some psychotherapies as well. So all like sort of things like that. And I don't know, psychology was always like my thing, and I even tried to study like psychotherapy, didn't get in. but like that was always kind of my direction. So
So it always resonated with you. There was something that you always wanted to do. Okay, so that makes sense now. Perfect sense. When you were teaching, did you find it was helping you as a martial artist and fighter as well, looking at things from teaching point of view, teaching your students?
yeah, absolutely. Like I had to like concentrate the information in like short and like easily to digest pieces of information, so they would like actually grasp it. Like sometimes when you teach or talk to people, they don't really get the information, right? There's no transfer. It doesn't arrive to them. So I had to think of ways how to actually really bring the information to them, especially if they were kids. So I taught both kids and adults. So then I could like think about what are the key points, what is the main thing I have to teach and what is not so important. And yeah.
And putting it in different words for different people, I guess, as well, because if they're adults or if they're kids.
Yeah, but also I would like I had lots of work with the preparation because I didn't like to teach in the way I was taught. I believe that it could be uh, more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
since it's like always argued that the traditional way, it should be traditional, it's like for a reason. But one of the biggest reasons why people train in the traditional way, as it was like come stay 3 hours and like practice the form and so on, it's because they had nothing else to do. Like there was no internet, there was no distractions. But now everything is in a hurry, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we have to adapt. So I wanted to like find ways how to like teach more effectively, or like how to teach concepts maybe in a warm up, then I could like build on later when I teach the technique and so on. So I
I'm
would add some
yeah, go
I
go.
would add some I would add some more from other things, like some strength and conditioning also, or some little bit of physiotherapy, and yeah, so it was a bit of different like package.
I like that. I really like that because in some from some point of view, probably the very traditional point of view, this would be called the heretic, But I like that because I think, as you said, we need to adapt, we need to evolve, and I'm all for traditional teaching, and I do
Mhm,
understand why it's done and how it's done. But as you say, we live in a different world. It's a much fast-paced world, and the focus is somewhere else. There's just so much stimuli, so much that we have to do in different ways, and we have got slightly different knowledge about the warm-ups, about physiology as well. So why not
mhm.
use the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And also it comes to the definition of what actually is traditional. Like if you change the teaching, does it mean that you break the traditional? Like no. It, but traditional doesn't really mean that it's old. It means, or at least the definition that I like, is that the art is connected with self-defense. It's all about self-defense, all about like the fighting actually, like the use. So then if you look at modern wushu or like modern like styles, uh, then you don't there is no self-defense, but there is no reference for how to use it correctly because there is no use. So yeah.
Yeah, I like practical use as well. Um, with my sifu, he was teaching us as well forms, and I was always demanding the to show the applications because I realized at some point that I learn much faster and remember much quicker and much more if I have the application. I can work it out in some ways, but it takes me maybe slightly longer than when he shows me. When he realized that I pick it up much faster, he started to always come to me and say, this is what it's for, this is how you do it, and this is where you take it.
Mhm.
you know. So yeah, no, the practicality I think is very important because otherwise there is the danger, like with Tai Chi, that in certain quarters it becomes a nice dance. And it's fine, it looks nice, and but there is more to it. It's originally a martial art, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you can do it in the aspect of health, so, and then it looks like the lovely dance and it
Hmm.
does the health thing and longevity, but it has got the practical use of being martial art and being applied in real
Hmm. Hmm.
situations. So no,
Yeah.
I totally love the way you're doing it. And by the way, for everyone that is listening or watching, Veronica does teach online. You do have courses, don't you?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I have few, but it's like one of the things I should work on probably, and I don't really have time to get to it, but I will get to it one day.
Eventually, well, now you're training in your MMA because you are
Mhm.
preparing for your professional entry
Debut.
into MMA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell us a bit about that, if you
Uh,
want to, of course.
about about the training or
Yeah, about the training and what the goals and dreams are, what the plan is. If you want to, as much as you
um
want to, or as little as you want to, of course.
okay, well, so now since I'm here, I'm training full time, so that means usually twice per day. Sometimes I do 3 sessions, but usually 2 sessions per day, from Monday to Saturday. So I have different sessions. I have BJJ, I have wrestling, I have sparring, I have some Muay Thai, I have strength and conditioning. Um, I have some mobility classes too. So I do some drilling with partners or take some private classes. And in between the training, I also work. So then that basically like that's my day.
I mean, do
And
you sleep? Do you sleep as well? Do you have time for
yes,
sleeping?
sometimes I do sleep.
Sometimes.
No, of course sleep because it's very important to like
Important.
try to like have enough energy for everything. So that's like sleeping, right?
And the
Eating, but
repair,
also
yeah.
thinking. Yeah, it's repair. Especially if I'm not like 20 anymore, I have to be like careful. And
Well, I'm 50, so I know about the needing to sleep to repair because it takes a long time.
yeah, yeah. But I'm 34, so some fighters they retire at my age. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, let's do fighting now. So
I love that. I love this. Like, age, I don't care. I just this is what I want, and I'm going for it. Brilliant.
yeah. So yeah. So when I got here, I I uh, I I got here in January, and then I officially moved here in April. So I got a fight in June, and then between June and December, I think I had like 6 or 7 fights. That's quite a lot because in Hong Kong I had one, maybe two per year. So my coach George, he was like, "Oh, you need more experience." I was like, "Okay." So I had like fights, 2 weeks, fights, 3 weeks, fights.
So George said you need more experience. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you have fight each day.
Yeah,
No,
so
he
I
means
was like,
full-time
literally,
before.
okay, I'm getting experience. So even once I was fighting and at one like event, like amateur and MMA, and they told me on the day I went in and they told me, oh, your opponent is not coming. She's in the hospital. I was like, oh, okay, well, I just traveled here for 10 hours, then like I guess now what? And they're like, but don't worry, we got you a different opponent. I was like, well, that's really cool, so quickly. And then she arrived 10 minutes before the fight. I was like already had my hands prepped, right? And she arrived. I was looking at her like this. And she was like, I don't know, like 10, 15 kg heavier than me, which is like 2 or 3 weight classes, right? And they were like, do you want to fight? I was like, oh, George said I need experience. Yes.
Yeah, I need the experience. Let's go for it,
Exactly. So,
That's the spirit. Awesome. So how did it go? How did you feel about that one? It's like, yeah, I can take her.
well, she took me. She choked me in the first round on the fence when I was trying to take her down. So it didn't go very well, but
It was experience, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have more losses than I have wins because um, especially like where I lived, there were not too many women fighting, so the opportunity to fight was very limited. So most of my fights I had 5 weeks or maximum like 2 weeks nowadays, but usually it was like sorry 5 weeks, 5 days. So usually it was like just like about a week with with people that often I knew that they're like better than me, but I was just jumping into it because I knew that I need to like fight. I need to have the experience.
George
So
said you need the experience.
well, that was even before I moved
Before George.
to Thailand, but I
The inner
felt like
George.
yeah, the inner George. The I always thought like if it doesn't break my ego, then I would learn much faster even if I lose. So I will just keep going until I start winning.
That's a brilliant attitude. That's a fighting spirit in you. There you go.
Yeah, well, still like before a fight, every time I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like tough enough to do that. And I'm like, how many times have I fought like the same, actually the same like fought? Every fight, I feel like I don't know if I can do this. And then after the fight, like, oh, I did it. And then the next one, I don't know if I can do this. Like it keeps coming, like on and on.
As the inner Blanche, someone I know calls this voice, you know, that like I don't know if I can do it, Blanche. They always say, sorry if any Blanche is listening. We don't mean anything bad about it, but it's just someone calls this inner voice her Blanche, and she's like, "Shut up, Blanche. We have heard this so many times before."
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're like, "Yeah, well, was it before? I survived it. I have learned. You know, I have advanced." And that's the thing is like, if you are, if you don't worry about losing and winning at some point when you're getting the experience, you are just getting the fighting muscle. It's like, yeah, I just go in. I know I have these thoughts. I do my job as best as I can. And then I'm fine afterwards and I have learned more. And the next one is the same, and the next one is the same, and the next one is the same. And then it's almost like, yeah, automatic. So that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And then you're writing all the notes afterwards.
Mm,
I
mm.
wonder how many notebooks you have got there filled.
Maybe 4. I really had to work on how to, because I'm very easy to, after a fight or after a kung fu competition, to just write down what I have to improve in, like the mistakes I did. I can just like write 20 like points I need to improve. But then if I have to write what I did well, that was really difficult for me. And especially what I think what is really difficult for people coming from traditional martial arts background to like fighting or like these kind of things. It doesn't have to be MMA, but that when you walk to the cage, you have to feel like you are the best person there and that you really are the best one. But in traditional martial arts, this is not the attitude, right? It's the humble attitude where you are like you are not the best one. You always have to learn something. You always have to like you are always like not good enough. And this you cannot like bring this attitude to the cage. That doesn't work. So that
Otherwise,
like
they
this is kind of
flatten
like
you. You lost before you even walked in the cage.
yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So how is it switching between these two? Because you you
It's
you you lived in that one before in the traditional settings. Now you
mm,
are in this one.
it's work in progress, I would say. I feel like few days or few weeks before the fight, it's really like a brain hack when you don't allow yourself to have any self doubts or any negative like thoughts, and you really just like go like positive, positive, positive. Yeah, but it's definitely like work in progress.
How do you pull the volume down on Blanche then? Because that's actually, I would find it harder than physical work, harder than the physical training. That training says
Yeah.
like stay
Um,
in positive totally all the time.
I think it's very individual, and so for some people they go in and they're like, oh, maybe I fall. No, 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 that will never happen because I'm the best, right? So there are like so many approaches, and for me, at least now, maybe next month it will not work anymore and I have to change it, but at least for me now, it's that I if I accept that it may happen, that if I'm just friends with my Blanche and I will be like, oh yeah, you're right, it can happen, I can fail, so what? Then it's like, all right, yeah, you don't have any more power over me.
That's true. If you don't fight it, you know that doesn't grow. It doesn't grow in strength.
And and it's true, like especially in MMA, it's so fast. Anything can happen. Like 1 second, and you can be losing and suddenly or winning and suddenly it turns around. So
Mm.
anything can happen there.
So in a way, to have to be effective, you do need to have the acceptance that it's fine. No,
Hmm.
like Yeah, I'm not blaming myself. I'm not making big drama out of it
Yeah,
for my ego or my. I don't allow my ego to make big drama of it because this is the nature of the beast in some ways.
yeah. I think one of the like important moments for me was when I realized that when I lose, it doesn't mean that my teammates and my coaches will not speak to me anymore, and they will just put me on a blacklist. Ah, she's not our friend anymore. We don't hang out with her anymore. But that they are actually in my corner not because they expect me to win or because I won, but because they are supporting me for the work I have already done, like what I did in the gym. So they will be in my corner, like no matter like the result. So that was like that was like a big moment for me to like realize that I'm not going to like fail anyone.
Mm-hmm. That's true that the fear of failing is so ingrained in us from society and from childhood. So that's
Mm,
something that we struggle with as well. For me as a spectator, um, looking at the fights, watching the fights, in some ways, who wins and who loses is not actually that important for me. When I watch it, I'm like, how did you fight? Did you fight with
mm.
with real
Yeah,
spirit?
yeah,
Did you give it all? You know,
yeah.
and if you won or if you lost on points or choke or whatever, you know,
Mm.
KO, it doesn't matter to me. I just did you
Yeah,
fight
yeah,
well? I mean, if
yeah.
you might lose and I would be like, whoa, you are a real fighter, and like, you know, I look up to you because you have done your job and you have got real spirit, and even if you're losing and you're in so much pain, you know, bleeding all over the place, you're still fighting, you're still giving it your best. You see the commitment through, and that's for me as spectators more important. So it's about who you are and how you go into
Yeah,
spend the points well. When you are in the big league and we are making the big money, then it is about the points and the salary as well. So, what
yeah.
is your dream? What is your dream? What are your goals with the fighting?
Well, so I want to turn pro as soon as I can now. And I just want to like climb up as high as I can and then see what stops me. Like I don't know how much time I have or like how much potential I have in my skill. So I was just like I want to climb up.
Oh, UFC, one championship. UFC or one championship or both?
I will not name any
Yeah,
promotion.
yeah, no problem. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you have to actually watch this now, don't you? Because you are heading to
No,
professionals.
no,
So
no. I'm just for now I'm like keeping my dreams to
keeping it
myself because
inside.
I'm
Good.
still
Yeah, no, I'm not pushing you, of course. If you want, or if you don't, do you have any role models or anyone that you like how they fight or how they train, how they carry themselves?
I do, but you probably don't know them because I see lots of like I like to watch like women fighting in the UFC or ONE FC or PFL, but really the role model for me are the people who actually comes through our gym, like people I can train with, especially the girls. And then I see them fighting, even though it's like much smaller promotion, or I see them climb up. Then like, and I have like interaction with them, and they help me somehow. That they are the like role models that I follow, that I really like watch, and I'm like, oh, I want to be like her one day. And they're like much closer to me, like in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like levels. They're like few levels above me. So it's like I can see myself like there. So it's much more like realistic for me.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. That
mhm. And I have like I know them as people, so I have lots of like respect for them and how they like how they train, how they are as human beings. So
exactly how they carry themselves, how they
yeah.
approach others, yeah, how they conduct their
Mm,
relationships, yeah. So what what
yeah.
what what are the traits that resonate with you most with them? What are the things that you're like, oh, I really like this?
Um Maybe like inspiring others to like dream big and like believe in yourself. I train a lot with Loma at our gym. She is the only Thai fighter in UFC, and she is just amazing. She just comes to me after training, and she goes like, oh, you're so much better. You improve. You level is like here and it was here, and now I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh my god, thank you so much. I
That's
didn't ask
awesome.
for that. She just comes like a sister to me, basically, and I'm sometimes I'm like, oh, Loma, do you think I'm like improving? I feel like and she goes like, oh yes, you're so much better now, and before it was but now.
Oh, that's
So
brilliant.
yeah, and then she kicked my ass, and I always make fun of it. And when we like grapple, she takes like usually 10 seconds to submit me. So every time I'm like, oh, Loma, today it's gonna be 12 seconds, and then maybe I make 15 seconds. I'm like, see, 15 seconds today. It was, I'm getting better, and she's just like laughing.
Oh, brilliant. Now I can see how you say it's just such a positive, nurturing environment. So it's like so much
Mhm.
camaraderie, like a family, keeping each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
up and kicking each other's ass and then
Yeah,
supporting each
yeah.
other.
I would say I am maybe a little bit of a clown. Like people have different approaches to the training, right? Someone needs to be like very focused and serious, and I'm working better if I'm like more relaxed and like laughing it off. And I laugh especially if I'm stressed or in pain or scared, then I laugh a lot. So I make lots of like stupid jokes and I chit chat and so some people are like, why you're not serious with your face? Like, yeah, this is me being serious.
This is me dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah. So I have my how to say it, my totem animal, or like my role model is actually Shannon Wan Chin. He's a Thai fighter in one championship, and he is like he's a beast. He's like amazing like sniper. He's so precise with his technique. But if you hit him, he'll just start laughing. He will like shake it off, and then he goes again. And he's like so happy all the time. Like he's so much full of like joy. I was like, oh, I wanna when I grow up, I wanna be like him.
That's brilliant. I have to look him up. Also, yeah, it brings the relaxation, doesn't it? Because I'm just
Mhm.
when you describe it's like when I'm a bit start tensing up with fear or can get into the seriousness, I just kind of shrug it off or release it in through this way. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, also, listen, I have taken lots of your time, and we are heading towards the conclusion of our interview, and I have
Mhm.
had a blast. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
I just wanted to ask, is there anything, any topics or anything that we haven't covered and you would like to talk about, or any messages for our listeners?
Um, I
Any
think we
projects?
covered everything. Messages, maybe just like if someone tells you you can't do anything, you can do something, don't listen to them and just go and do it, and like show other people that they can do it too. I think that's kind of my like life motto, to like show others that they can if they want, no matter like what. Um,
I love that.
projects.
I love that you're a rebel. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Projects. So I have my Instagram and Facebook. Both is like Kung Fu Academic or VERČA Kung Fu Academic, because no one actually calls me Veronica. They call me VERČA. That's like the shortcut. Even like everyone around me here, like my coaches, they learn how to say that. So
They do. Okay, so
yeah,
next
they
time I
do.
can say Vercha, right? I wasn't sure.
But it's okay. I can be found as Veronica as well. But if you just search Kung Fu Academic, that will like bring it up. I have my website and my blog on Medium. So if you like the post, just like become a follower. And I appreciate any help, or like I don't know if there are any partners that would like to cooperate. Yeah, that will help me a lot.
Absolutely. Support this wonderful fighter. Look at her
Thank you.
attitude. You want to stand behind her, you want to support her, you want to give her your support. And we will put all your details under the podcast anyway, so people can go and have a look and find you and connect with you and follow your career, your progression.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.